Humanianity, a new religious call. Humanianity, religion for us all. Humanity, now we all can see. Humanity, how much better we can be. Hi, I'm Bill Van Fleet, and these are conversations about humanianity and related issues as presented on the website at humanianity.com. The current conversation is the second Humanianity conversation recorded on November 17th, 2018, again with my friend Mike. He and I have had a number of past conversations about various philosophical issues, and he has also helped me with some technical problems. I recommend first viewing session 1 of Humanianity Conversations, recorded on October 25th, 2018, which was also a conversation with Mike. We are trying to identify any non-optimal parts of the Humanianity concept and the website. In the current discussion, we continued to work on the problem as to whether humanianity ought to be associated with, quote, religion. Toward the end, we talked some about the concept of the self and made some reference to my book on the mind-body problem, which is available free on the website under philosophy and also under podcasts.
I'm not a convert to humanity. I think there's a lot of things that either I disagree with or I lack clarity on as in exactly what you mean, specifically around the religion aspect of it, and why this has to be a religion, or why you would like for it to be a religion. That's something else during our last call we had spoken a lot about, which is the whole kind of religion question. And I do get that as the creator of this, that if I can paraphrase what we talked about during the last call, you had identified I think a couple of things. You recognize that religion or some kind of religious belief is simply part and parcel of human nature. So it's always going to be here. So you said, rather than try to eliminate religion, which is kind of antithetical to that.
Yeah, but already you're in a different world than I am as far as what we're talking about. So you are operating from your concept of, quote, religion, which is different than my concept of, quote, religion.
Well, I'm talking about
yours is the customary, predominant view of religion.
Why do you think that? I didn't define what I meant by religion. I was just parroting what we had talked about last time.
I know.
Summarizing, basically.
I know, but I could kind of tell, and we could demonstrate that. You could tell me what you think religion is. And I could.
What I think, or what I think you said religion was last time? What you said religion was last time, if memory serves, you had said that religion is an organization that attempts to provide ethical guidance for humans, that people go to religions to find out a better way to behave and a more moral way to be. And the issue with that was, that you had said, the problem is that these religions are at present, although they are changing, are authoritarian in nature, and they do not typically rely on a rational ethical basis of creating these behavioral guidelines. They rely on this authoritarianness authoritarian guidelines that people don't have any say in. So you had proposed that instead of trying to wipe out religion, which is counterproductive, let's try to change religion and improve religion in a way that is outlined in Humanianity. That's what I remember us talking about.
That is very, very close, but I think what is a disconnect is that you're saying, okay, yes, Bill, this is what you've been saying, but in my mind, I know that religion is really such and such. In other words, it has...
Right. So let me tell you what I think religion is.
Go ahead.
So, just kind of off the cuff, at the top of my mind, and even after thinking about it a little bit, although in the past I've given this a little bit more thought, I think an integral part of religion that's almost mandatory is let me clarify this, in the typical definition of religion. So that means you kind of go to if you go to most people, well, right. Bill, nobody has one definition of religion. Right. You can ask 8 billion people, it'd be different. But if you ask most of the people,
right,
I think most people would say,
right,
part and parcel with religion is the reason why the religion exists is to bring you closer to some type of transcendental deity, reality, something
right.
that is beyond the mundane here.
Right, right.
That's what I think is the core part of religion.
Wait. You are indeed describing the typical definition of religion. Yes. My contention is that the typical definition is incorrect. Now, you could say, how can that be? Definition is just whatever you make it. Well, I say this, that if you want to define religion, then you would need to take a look at everything that we call religion. Yeah, that's a religion. Yeah, that's a religion. No, that's not a religion. Yeah, that's a religion. Take a look at all of those things that we say, yes, it's religion, and then say, how do we decide that it is a religion? And then make that the definition. We take a look at what's characteristic, what is implied in, or what is a part of every one of those things that we point to and say, yeah, that's religion. That's the purpose of a definition. Okay. The purpose of a definition is to make sure that we know what we're talking about. And what we're talking about is a list of things. And that list of things is a list of things of which such and such is true, whereas the things that is not true of, we would say would not be religion. Now, there is a weakness in my proposal, but it is also something that is not easy to see at first because of our current highly embedded ways of thinking. And let me describe what that is. It is true that that most of our religions have included a belief or a statement that one should have the belief of things that in the current modern world we would say do not exist, or we would say that there's no evidence for them, or that it is contrary to what science has come up with in our study of the universe. That's correct. So, and that's true because, number one, almost all of our religions have been created long ago before we had any scientific understanding of the universe. And
Okay.
so we had all sorts of understandings that, like Zeus and so
Right.
on. Okay, so of course the religions had those beliefs in them. But now, why did they have those beliefs in them? Why was it important in this activity called religion to have those beliefs? In order to figure out what we should do. So the function of the religion
Mm.
is to figure out what we should do. Now, our religions tend to be ancient, but they are coming into the modern world. Wait, wait,
Hold.
wait, 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 no,
Let me think
wait.
about that for a
Just
moment.
one thing.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Unitarian Universalism does not require belief in gods or what most people would list under supernatural. Okay, go ahead.
You had said that the reason why originally people believed in these deities and this transcendental whateverness was to help them understand how to behave.
No, no, it was not that.
Um,
It is to.
and that was kind of that
No.
was the original intent.
Did you hear me say no? Did you hear
Yeah,
me?
now I heard that. Yeah, you threw. Yeah.
Okay,
So
because
then,
we're
because
breaking
that's what
up.
you just said.
Yeah, we're breaking up. No, I did
You're
not say
perfect. I
that.
can see you.
Okay, I did not say that. I said that our religions, if you go back and look at all the things, the 4,000 religions that we've had, I don't know who has counted them. If we look at them, they are social efforts to come together to exist better in our tribes or our groups or our subgroups or whatever. That's been their function. In order to figure out what we should do, we have to understand what happens when we do things. That's existential beliefs. And you remember, I think, an extremely important understanding to have is the difference between existential beliefs and ethical beliefs. So existential beliefs are just beliefs about existence, about what exists or has existed or will exist in the future, and how it all works, and therefore what will happen if we do this, that, or the other. Okay, our ethical beliefs are our beliefs about what we should or should not do. Now, it does get more complicated when we figuring about ethical beliefs and the difference between them and existential. We can leave that alone for the moment. But in other words, if should I or should I not recycle? That's an ethical question. Well, to determine it, one has to figure out what will happen if I recycle, what will happen if I don't. In other words, I have to understand how the universe works.
Why is that required to make that decision? That doesn't seem to be required to me. I don't have to, in order to make a decision whether to recycle, I don't need to know what necessarily will happen if I do or don't recycle. I can make that decision based on some instruction I received from somewhere.
Okay. Then you have the belief that you got an instruction from somebody, and you believe that you should follow the instruction. But you have to know what the instruction is. That's an existential belief. That instruction is or was. That's an existential belief. You have to understand, for you to know whether you should say something or not say it, you have to have some idea of what will probably happen if you say it versus what will probably happen if you don't. That's how you decide whether you should or should not do it. Without that information, it's a toss of a coin.
I'm trying to understand the context of that statement.
Okay.
Are you saying that's how people should decide, or that's how most people decide?
That's the only way that people can decide. They have to
completely. So they are aware. What you're saying is they are cognitively aware of what will happen with if they make choice A or B, and then they decide.
No, that it's their best guess.
Yeah, but to guess, they have to be cognitively aware. They have to be cognitively. There has to be actionable cognition. They have to be cognizant of the fact that I have two choices here, A or B. If I do A, this will happen. If I do B, this will happen.
Yeah. Wait. That's it. If I do A, this will happen. If I do B, this will happen. That's an existential belief about existence, about what, how the universe works. Yes.
I think that if you ask most people, they will say that such a requirement is not always present when they make a decision. People aren't always cognizant of the outcomes of their decision. Perhaps they should be.
No, that's something entirely different. That is
because you said that was that I don't understand. You said that's the only way to make a decision. So
that there is some guess, some belief, maybe not strongly believed, maybe quite weakly believed, but some belief about what the consequences will be if you do such and such. That's the only way you can figure out what you should do. That's the only way that you can figure out what you should do.
I don't agree with that. I don't think most people would. It is possible to not be consciously aware of an outcome and make a decision on something.
Okay, that's different.
I could give you an example of that.
No, that's different.
Okay.
I did not say consciously aware.
Oh, okay.
But it's still, look, you just did something. You reached back behind your neck and you readjusted your pillow. Okay, in order to do that, you had to believe that there was a pillow back there and that all you had to do was to reach back and move your hands in a certain way to move it. But all of that was automatic. But it was still the operation of your beliefs that there's a pillow there and that you can move it.
Okay, now I understand.
You see?
Now I understand what you mean by beliefs. So you're not talking about conscious beliefs. You're talking about
right.
I don't know what they would be called.
Okay. Now this is a good example. We want to find out about beliefs. So let's do what I wanted to do before. I'm going to do a screen share. Now, do you see Humanianity, this website, and its word usage?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'll go down basic definitions and explanations. Okay. Now, belief, number 5. Do you see belief, number 5?
Yes, I see that.
Okay. Belief. Okay. Belief, as used here, refers to a model in the brain or in the, quote, mind of something presumably in or about, quote, reality. The belief can be further modeled linguistically in the form of a sentence or proposition. A way of designating that a proposition is a belief is by stating that it is, for example, I believe that, and then whatever it is. As in, I believe that it's going to rain, existential belief. Or I believe that I should do something nice for this person, ethical belief. Most of the time, the I believe that is unspoken but understood from the context in which a statement is made.
Okay, I understand. I understand what you mean now by belief as a model.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, a good...
Is that in the mind-body problem should be if it's not.
Yes. Well, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is, but I'm just saying that as
Okay.
a faith.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but it is such a central concept. It because I mean, in the mind-body problem, it is talking about our models, um, and let's see. I could go to that, but I don't know that we want to do that at this
No,
point.
no, 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 no.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
don't.
Yeah. Okay. So now let's see. I'm going to go back. Okay. So.
So my question was, yeah, let me restate it again.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry.
So my question is, are you implying that human beings, and I agree, human beings are clearly utilizing symbolic language and the rules of logic and evidence to influence their ethics to improve their lives and become less like chimps? My question to you is,
well, wait a minute. Wait. There's a little bit of difference here. Now, we have used those tools, language and science and technology, in the service of our basic animal nature. We've used them to do all the bad things.
Right.
Now, what I'm saying is,
but we're also starting sometimes using them in a different way, but it's very early.
Right.
In that process.
Right.
Now, my question is, are you saying that change that's starting very early now is going to transform into human nature?
Okay. Now, here's the problem. You're using a phrase that I don't use, human nature.
Okay.
It is not a defined phrase. I'm sure that
okay,
you could.
Let me define it now then.
Go ahead.
Well, let's both attempt to define it.
I won't.
Well, let me get your approval then for how I'm going to define it. And I'm curious to understand why you won't define it.
Okay.
Let me start there. Why won't you define human nature?
Okay. Let me see if I can do this now. Now, are you seeing a specific intro?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let's see. Basic definitions. Let's see. Now, we were talking about human nature.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why won't you define it?
Okay. Basic animal hominid nature. Okay. Now let's go down here and says. No. Let's see. Where is it?
Well,
there
Phil,
it is.
There it
is. There it is.
Okay,
There it
go
is.
ahead.
Okay, the term human nature is widely used, but in highly ambiguous, poorly defined ways, so that it is not used on this website. To be consistent with the terminology of this website, it would probably be something like, quote, our basic hominid nature plus our uniquely human ways of manifesting that basic hominid nature. But there would probably be multiple suggested alternatives to this definition and no ultimate agreement as to an optimal definition. The idea of human nature being that which we uniquely have that comes naturally would be subject to the question as to what is meant by naturally and what was actually unique in our characteristics that was not just a human version of something that was not unique, but found in other species also.
Then let me ask you a question. Let's start here.
Okay.
Do chimps have, is there a basic chimp nature?
I don't know.
All right.
You're asking.
All right. Let me go on to define what I mean by.
No, wait a minute. See, you could be saying, is there an entity that exists in the universe called basic chimp nature that if we found it, then we could just slap a label on it, put a label on it. But that's different than saying, okay, we can create a definition that puts a wall around certain things, and anything that's inside that wall we will call basic chimp nature, and anything outside of it. But then we would have to say how to determine what's inside the wall and what's
I
outside the wall.
propose, right? I propose you're doing that implicitly, and you have done that in your language and some of what you've written. You're implying that chimps have a basic nature, and that is to be, dominance oriented, violent, and you say it all the time. It's like, it's our basic chimp nature.
Yeah, but
So
the problem is that number one, any particular characteristic that we're talking about can vary from tribe to tribe and from individual to individual. For instance, some
well,
chimps.
the same could be said of chimps.
I'm talking
But they
about
still.
chimps. I'm talking about chimps.
Okay, go ahead.
So one chimp can be born with a genetic makeup that makes it much more prone to be submissive, and another one much more prone to be hostile and aggressive and to develop anger and to fight and so forth. But those variations are all a part of what is a part of every chimpanzee.
Okay, so that gets to my point, and I
Okay.
acknowledge that there are variations
Yes.
in how the typical chimp would behave,
Yes.
to varying degrees. So when I say the nature of something, and there are multiple instances of what we're evaluating, then what I mean to do there is to imply what would most of those entities do under certain conditions. So when you say chimp nature, it's what would most chimps, what's the typical behavior of most chimps. So when I say human nature, it's what is the behavior that is typical of most humans. So now, I don't think, and I think Chris would completely disagree with me here, I don't think that most humans are nonviolent because they don't want to be. I think most humans are not violent because of the society that they live in their environment.
Their ethical
So
beliefs. Their ethical beliefs. About
no,
what their ethical beliefs.
No,
about,
I don't even think it's ethical beliefs.
No, wait, hold on, because that's very, very important. It's essential. The reason that they're not is because they've been taught that they should not be by their parents.
I disagree. No, that's what I'm saying. I disagree with that statement.
Well, that's an oversimplification. It's also the whole culture itself may say.
No, I just don't think that's what. Let me finish.
Okay, go ahead.
The reason why most people are not violent and killing each other is because humans have created a technology called society that gives individual humans all their needs, and to a larger or lesser degree meets the needs of every human. Now, if you take that away, if societies are destroyed and humans are left, and you look multiple generations in the future, without any of that, humans will absolutely kill each other for resources and needs. So, in my opinion, that's why I'm stuck.
Okay,
on whether you're saying what's the human nature. Are you implying that human nature is going to change?
I'm not talking about human nature. I don't use the term for exactly this reason.
So are you saying that most humans will behave differently in the future?
Wait. Let me point out that what you describe, this social organization, is a part of our basic hominid nature. Chimpanzees and bonobos have cultures also, and within the tribe, there is a certain amount of harmony. It is unstable, of course, when a leader is attacked by two other people that take over and so forth, and then all of that can happen. All of that is a part of our basic hominid nature. All of those things occur. But the tendency towards social organization occurs because we are, and they are, chimps are, and bonobos are, social animals. And there are other social
Okay.
species also.
Agreed.
Okay.
That
So
doesn't seem to have any bearing on what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that to imply, from what I hear you say, and that's what I'm trying to understand, from what I'm hearing you saying, is that the human tendency for authority to sorry, let me say it again. The human's tendency towards dominance and violence is on its way out, and what's on its way in is a tendency towards democracy and agreement and nonviolence as a result of that. Is that what you're saying? The tendency for most people.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
That's because that is too specific and restricted. It is one example that the emergence of democracy. The idea is this, that we humans, because of our language and now our science and technology especially, but even before this science and technology, we began to be able to question whether what we just naturally did was a good thing or not. And so we're beginning to say, well, maybe this tribalism that we engage in is not good because it keeps us fighting with other tribes. And that what we want to do is to identify with ourselves as a species and therefore have human rights. Okay. That we will do better if we inhibit our tendency toward anger and hostile behavior and struggling for dominance. And one of the religions has a fair amount of that in it. Christianity, Jesus was, whether mythical or not, a lot of what the actual or the mythical Jesus was reported to have said was that, no, we shouldn't fight. We should love one another. We should, by loving one another, meaning we should be concerned that they have a good life, that they feel okay.
Okay.
So
now I think I'm starting to understand. Okay. So you're not saying as a result of this exponential change that everyone's going to love each other and no one's going to kill each other anymore. It's not what you're saying.
Right. That's a great overstatement because I don't think that we will ever become perfect in this new way of living, but we can move in that direction. And wouldn't it be nice to no longer have any wars? Okay. And wouldn't it be nice to have a far lower incidence of crime? Right.
Agreed. Before I lose my train of thought, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
So then what you're saying here is, what trips me up here is that I look at the acquisition of language as an evolutionary development, not as a tool. Like it is, I agree, it's a tool, but it's also part and parcel. It's like, you can take a human and isolate it, and it'll develop some type of language. But if you have that human,
I'm not sure that that's right.
Some type of symbolism. They won't use verbal language, but they'll able to use some kind of representational language to represent things to other people. Gestures, grunts, something like that. Very similar.
No, wait a minute. Gestures and grunts, that's signs. That people make a distinction. A symbol is something that stands for something else and that can be put into relationship with others in a secondary kind of modeling, namely the production of sentences. And if a baby is raised by a chimpanzee, it is not going to be using symbols. It will communicate. Chimpanzees communicate a lot. They gesture and they know what the gestures mean. But that's not the same thing as saying, now this is called a gesture. or this is called a hostile gesture. Uh, Now, chimpanzees can do it with sign language. With sign language, they can develop symbols and construct sentences. They can do it, but they don't
Okay.
because
So
they have to be around humans to do it.
okay. So are you saying that I'm not very versed on, evolutionary biology here, but
Neither
it
am I.
doesn't seem right to me. It seems to, I would think that the use of symbols in a more intricate way has become part and parcel to human evolution and doesn't need to be learned, which is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So, so
Let me, if I may.
go ahead.
Um, I'm not saying that no other species ever uses a symbol. I don't know of one that does, but perhaps there is some tendency in that direction, and it would have to do with the difference between a symbol and a sign. So where we draw a line may come into something like that. But the thing is, what has happened during the process of evolution and is the development in humans of much greater frontal cortex, and that has enabled uh, this very complex use of symbols. But the complex use of symbols is not a genetic thing; it is a psychosocial thing, and it is dependent upon the interaction with others within a social group.
And that's what, I was kind of thinking along the same lines, and I like I could have said, well, shit, if that's true, we're even worse situation than I thought, because I was actually thinking, and I could see how it's not true, this belief that I had. I would agree, but I think humans have the capability of learning language, but it's probably not, it's probably won't manifest unless it's learned. Which says to me that we're even closer to chimps than I originally thought. That
Yes, we are. Yes.
it doesn't seem to be this fundamental difference that manifests itself naturally. The difference has to be learned,
Yes.
basically.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so then basically the
We
implication,
are
I think I've answered my own question, and
we're
I think
we are talking high-tech chimps
yeah.
doing what chimps do in our own human ways.
Right.
But we're getting better. We're beginning to say, well, the way we naturally do things is not necessarily the best way. So we have to inhibit some of the things that we do naturally and replace it with other things that have a better set of outcomes. And we are better at being able to predict those sets of outcomes because of our first two exponential changes. Even the first one, where
right.
and in fact that it is our beliefs about the way the world works that that bring about social cultural guidelines, ethical guidelines as to what we should do, even though we may want to do different.
Right. So I think I've answered my own question. So let me see if I can, with this new something I kind of was realization, admittance that I admitted to myself. So the third, we're always going to have this tendency to be like chimps because we're chimps. We're just going to institutionalize norms and ethics, and institutionalize being the key phrase there, to prevent us from acting like chimps, basically. And that is going to be like a third exponential change. That's rational ethical living. It's the institutionalization of basically norms, cultural norms that prevent us from being like chimps.
What do you mean
because we
by
have to learn how to do that.
what do you mean by institutionalization?
Institutionalized means it's like no longer questioned. It's just the way it is.
I'm
Like,
sorry?
well, of course, people like it's just the way it is. Well, of course, people come to agreement. Like now, it's the you could argue, what's institutionalized is a dominant hierarchy. It's just, well, that's just the way it is.
Uh-huh.
It's like everybody's uses that.
Okay, I thought
Whereas in the future, it's going to be like, well, dominance. What are you talking about? I haven't agreed with that yet. Of course, it's not. I have to come to agreement first. It's just going to be a whole different. It's like just a different paradigm of thinking that we don't think of right now.
That's correct. Only it won't be exactly the way that you said. It will be, well, of course we have a tendency to struggle for dominance. That's why you had that thought last night. That's why you had that dream in which you got into a fight. And so, yes, that's a part of us. It will always be a part of us. But we found that by inhibiting certain of our natural tendencies and doing something different, what we should do instead, that those ethical beliefs, principles, and rules of conduct will guide us to do that which will have a much better set of outcomes. Better? Less PSDED, more JCA, joy, contentment, and appreciation.
Right. Isn't the implication there that people will begin to admit to themselves that their natural tendencies are destructive?
That's already happening. It's happening in somewhat in ways not easy to see. For instance, take Christian mythology. Okay, God created humans, but then they were in the Garden of Eden where they loved God, God loved them, and everything was sweet and lovely. And then they disobeyed. And from then on, there was this alienation between God and people. And so God got angry and punished and so forth. And then the question is, would God forgive and so on? Now, where did that come from? It's what each of us has gone through. Namely, we were born, we had this wonderful entity that we could suck on and would caress us and would rock us to sleep and everything was wonderful. And then we got legs. We were able to stand up and start walking around. And then we have a natural exploratory drive, just like is built into other species. And so we started doing this and doing that. Well, our parents realized you can't do that. So what do they naturally do? What's built into them? Punish. And so we fell from grace. And now we kept being bad, and we have to keep being punished, and so forth. That idea of punishment and falling from grace and so forth is a description of what actually happened, not in the mythical way, of course, as described. Okay, so then the question is, well, how do we get back to a good state? Well, what we need to do is, of course, take over our own, start supervising ourselves rather than just being supervised by parents and older siblings and the culture and so forth. And we need to work on our basic ethical philosophy. Well, how do we do that? We do that with other people. Oh, well, that means you have to get together with other people and talk with them. Yes.
Why is an individual have to...
Wait, where do you go? Where do you go to do that?
I know, religion.
Okay.
But how do you go... Why does an individual who's trying to take more responsibility for supervising himself have to go to others to do that?
They don't.
Okay, they don't. Good. So in the time we have left, I have a very, very important...
However, Where are you most likely, or how are you most likely to get new ideas?
Agreed from others.
Okay.
Agreed. So, I have a very important question. Then the time we have left, I'd like you to answer. We've identified in a corrective nature for me what human nature, what 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 is part and parcel for humans, which I thought was language and symbol. And I agree, it's not now, and I would admit that. So my question to you is, in your opinion, when I'm sitting here speaking to you, I have this illusion that what is there's no real language. I don't know the words for this. Let me say it because it's a very important question for me. When I'm sitting here speaking to you, I'm under the illusion that the me that's speaking to you is the me that's using the language. But if that's just something I learned, my question to you is, what part of me is like my true nature? Is it my emotions? Is it my what is it?
Who says you have a true nature? You've made up a
I know
word.
it's at the okay. Forget true nature. That's not the.
I mean, you mean something by it.
Yeah, that's the wrong word.
Okay. Okay.
It's like what is? I don't know the word for it. I don't know the word for what I'm trying to ask. Maybe let me try it. Let me ask the question this way. If language doesn't motivate, I think ultimately, let me just say it if it doesn't make sense. And my question is what am I and who am I? If the language that I think I am has been learned, it's clearly not me. So then my question to you is, what is me?
Well, that's just a matter of definition. You could say that there is no me. Are you going to include, there are more non-human cells in your body than there are human cells?
Right. No, I understand evolutionarily. Yeah.
Yeah, the organisms within us, there's more
Yeah,
of.
I don't mean human. I mean like my experience. I got it. My sense of self tells me that what I'm saying, what I'm talking to you, is me, is my sense of self, is my experience of me. But if that's just been learned, that can't really be what it has to be a mistake I'm making, that it's not really my sense of self in me. So my question is, what is? What is it my emotions? Is it my is what is my sense of self more closely akin to a feeling I have throughout the day, or desires and motivations to do things, of hurting somebody or kissing somebody, or I mean, is that closer to me?
It all depends on how you want to define the word me. You don't observe an entity. This goes back to the Mind Body Problem book. You don't observe your mind. You just observe, quote, the things in it. but the mind is just defined as the collection of those things, but you don't see it because you can't see a boundary to your mind. You can't see something that is not mind. That's the subjective model.
Right.
See, so now what people, I know some people think, oh yes, you can actually see that through meditation, that you can rise above that and so forth. I would maintain, no, that's just an alteration of your subjective experience. Like you're seeing yourself up at the ceiling, looking at yourself or something like that. So that's a part of your subjective model, your subjective experience. So, and you know, there's some religious in the existential belief area beliefs or stances that there isn't really such a thing as self. I think Buddhists go in that direction.
Right.
And so on. So,
well, it's an illusion.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's. I think that I have to think about how to phrase that question again for when we meet next. But I think what's important is that in the context of what we're talking about also is that a real power of language, and which is part and parcel for thought, I guess, at this point, is the ability, this is what you said, of keeping an eye on ourselves, keeping an eye on let me personalize it, keeping an eye on my tendencies and controlling them and filtering them according to what's the best outcome. The thinking allows me to control myself to the end goal of more JCA.
And less PSDD.
Right, unless what's the opposite? JCA?
Yeah, joy, contentment, and appreciation. Yeah,
right.
But not just for you, for everyone, now and in the future.
Right.
If you're Humanian.
Right. All right, excellent. So on that note, my friend, I got to run. It's 4:00. I have a meeting. Excellent. Good times.
Yeah,
enjoyed it as always.
Now we all can see humanity, how much better we